While I have everybody, I think there's been a question about how we're going to provide the slides to everyone if you're not a CFO Alliance member and you don't have the app. As long as you registered for this session, we will send, or any of these sessions, we have the ability to send you the slides. So you will get the slides for all the sessions, okay? Non-members, it doesn't matter if you're a member. As long as you registered for this session, you will get a follow-up, then it will have all the slide decks, okay? That's the cool part. So don't worry, we're gonna get you everything. I also mentioned anything that we referenced, Sam Lambui has been capturing too. So anybody who references a book or an article or a resource, we'll also add that as a hyperlink or make sure we share that as well, okay? Awesome. All right, it's 2:30, so keep it on track and on time because everyone's counting down to the after party, right?
Everybody's looking forward to this session, but afterwards, afterwards, it'll be the after party.
That is absolutely right. I am so excited for this session. When Brian and Lane said they were putting this together, I was so excited and intrigued because it is it's something that I think we're all going to just be, okay, when you hear the word risk, you're like, oh my God. But no, this to me is a topic that I feel like needs our control, and I mean this in the most positive way. This is an area that finance can and should be talking about and talking more about and elevating our voice, but in a collaborative way. This is where we do not have pointy elbows. This is where the influence of finance horizontally across the enterprise with key stakeholders of all types, where we can feel most comfortable if we talk about this and we educate ourselves and we empower many to be a part of this. But in order to do that, we need more involvement, more people, and more ongoing discussion and education as well. So this is going to be really fun. I thank you. I'm going to turn it over to you so you can introduce yourselves and get us rolling. All right?
Great. Thank you, Nick. I will say just before we get started, the exercise works best if there's at least 4 people at every table. So if I could ask, for the gentleman who's walking in, if I could ask, this table here needs a 4th in order to have the minimum to play the game. All right, thank you. So Nick really set it up right, that this question from the title, right? Risk is not the brake, it's the steering wheel. So often we think about risk and risk management as being no, and you can't do this and you can't do that. What we are seeing is that more and more, the CFO is often the chief risk officer, and those guardrails that we put up actually allow the company to go faster. So when we say that we're adding governance, we're adding rules, what it does is it gives everybody else permission to go faster, and we're going to see some of that today. So the CFO Alliance has set up the 3 days with the idea of execution, right? So yes, the positive kind of execution, not the negative kind, I should. So yesterday, we started off by talking about the foundation of execution. What is it you have to put in place to go faster? So architects of capacity, decision-making frameworks, and call it where the friction really lies. Today, we're taking that execution one to the next level and saying, we recognize that there's times that execution gets stuck, right? So earlier, it was about cost pressures that you're trying to execute against, technology changes, and here we're going to talk about a cybersecurity event. And what we're finding when we talk to our members is that cybersecurity really is no longer just a tech issue. It's no longer only for technology. We're seeing the CFO is really playing a central role in how the company responds because we are risk management, because we are across the enterprise, not one silo. We have that end-to-end view. So with that, let's talk a little bit about where we are for cyber risk.
So nearly $21 billion in cybercrime losses were reported to the FBI in 2025, a 26% increase year over year. This is accelerating and not plateauing. The average breach cost $4.4 million globally, and in the US it was nearly double that of $10 million. These aren't just IT line items. These are financial events that affect earnings, liquidity, and disclosures. And the attackers themselves are changing as well. Just as AI is allowing us to be more effective, it's also allowing the bad guys to be more effective and efficient. And we'll show you how. So according to the latest CrowdStrike Intel Threat Report, they observed 27 fastest breakout time in the average of 20 minutes. This is them getting into the systems and starting to spread laterally. This effectively allows no human review into the process. It's now minutes. The 89% increase in AI enabled is the smarter attack. This is now taking your JV player hackers and giving them an AI license, and now they can perform like a skilled hacker did years and years ago, or years and years worth of experience. And the 82% increase in malware-free is the quieter attack. They are logging in with stolen credentials and bypassing your traditional alarms that would be going off historically. And if the response window is seconds, your decision-making process can't start during the event.
All right. How many people here have worked at an organization that has sustained a cybersecurity breach or a cyber attack? A couple people? Okay, I see. Oh, wow. I actually see a lot of hands. For those, maybe one or two that raise your hands, can you note what type of cyber attack it was? Like, was it ransomware? Was it a supplier attack? Ransomware? Okay, ransomware. Couple.
Mimicking an employee and entering into secure data areas.
Okay. Yes.
They cracked our MFA.
Wow, they cracked your MFA. Wow. Wow. So some pretty advanced attacks. I can say for those of you that have lived through a cyber attack, I can imagine it was not fun. I've spent my whole career working in cyber incident response, and these are pretty scary attacks that take up a lot of corporate resources. So there are a few different attack types. We're not going to talk through every single cyber attack in the book, but there are 5 that we do want to highlight here. The first of which is an AI-powered phishing attack and a deep fake. Essentially what cyber attackers have gotten very good at doing now is leveraging AI to do attacks faster. So the previous model looked like an attacker would build a phishing email with a link that routed you back to some form of a malicious site. Now they can just have the AI do it. And the AI can generate that malicious email and send it out faster to a lot more targets. So we're seeing that happen a lot more now. We're also seeing AI deepfakes. This is really scary. AI deepfakes are essentially where the bad guys are impersonating an executive at a company, oftentimes a CFO or a CEO, and they're having the AI call people in the organization, and it sounds just like your CFO or just like your CEO, and oftentimes they'll ask you to do an action such as making a wire transfer to a certain bank account or approving a certain transaction that is malicious. Now, in the moment, you don't know it's malicious because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll spoof a cell phone number, so you'll get a text message that looks like it's from the number of your boss or a CFO or a CEO, followed up by a phone call that says, hey, did you get my text? I need you to approve this wire transaction. And sometimes the sense of urgency leads to people actually doing it, and the money's gone from there. So that's one. Double extortion ransomware. So essentially what a lot of companies have done, a lot of companies have developed backups. So when a ransomware attack happens and they say, all right, we've got all of your data and we need $500,000 in Bitcoin or else you're not getting it back. A lot of companies have said, you know, we don't need to pay that because we have all of this data backed up and we can just restore from the backups. What a lot of the bad guys have started to do is say, okay, well, you've got backups. That's okay. We're going to start releasing that information every day past the deadline that you don't pay us. So even if you have the backups, you then are under pressure to make the payment or else have all of the PII, all of the privileged communications, all of the financial data that they have published out on the dark web or on the public internet. Third attack type that you see here is identity abuse and stolen credentials. I heard someone say an MFA attack. I heard others say impersonation of individuals at the company. So this is on the rise. So what we're seeing a lot more of is attackers are trying to get into the company. They're trying to navigate to get credentials that can then allow them to, with escalated privileges, make different changes on configurations and systems, or potentially exfiltrate data from the organization. Very devastating attack. Fourth here, we have cloud and API misconfigurations. These are not necessarily attacker-driven attacks, but this is where someone, a cloud administrator, makes an honest mistake and forgets to close shut what we call a storage bucket, an S3 storage bucket. And now that S3 storage bucket in the cloud is left open, or there's a misconfiguration that leaves it exposed to the internet. And now the bad guys that are always checking these cloud storage buckets, now they have an entryway to access a lot of sensitive data for the company. And then the last one here, I think this one, out of all of the different attacks, this one goes most unnoticed. This one is supply chain compromise. That's when a third party of yours sustains a breach and you may not know, or they may not report it to you fast enough. Maybe you don't have it spelled out in your third-party agreements where they have an SLA to let you know when they've had an attack by a certain time frame. And that attack happens, and then because that supplier has a connection into your network, then the attacker is able to spread over into your network and do some damage. So a lot of attacks that are on the rise, some of these we'll talk about in the exercise.
Anybody else feeling scared? A little bit, yeah. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play a game, and in a moment we'll give you time to get into character, which is what the white envelopes on your table are for. We'll go through 3 rounds of walking through a tabletop exercise of a cyber breach, and then we'll debrief at the end. First, we're going to tell you a little bit about us. Walter, why don't you lead us off?
Excellent. I'm Walter Crawford. I'm a senior director with Oak Trust Group. I've spent the last 10 plus years in the cybersecurity space, working specifically on incident response, worked a lot of big data breaches over the last 10, 12 years, including Target breach, SAP breach, and a few others. And fun fact about me is I love wine.
Lane Duncan here. I am a proud member of the CFO Alliance and IMA. I serve as the Director of Finance for Oak Trust Group, and I am an amateur pit master.
And I'm Brian Lapidus. I'm the Director of the FP&A practice at the Association for Financial Professionals. I'm also a member of the Global Advisory Board for CFO Alliance. If you want to meet up with me later while we're at Havana Village or in Ybor City, talk to me about biking, especially my trip in April. I could go on maybe you don't want to ask me about that. Okay, let's start us off.
All right. So do you want to go slip to...
You're right. So all of you, actually, why don't you read this part out, then I'll have them open their packets.
All right. You represent the executive team of Meridian Financial Services, a privately held regional firm managing $2.4 billion in assets, confronting a rapidly intensifying crisis following confirmation of a sophisticated supply chain cyber attack tied to a third-party vendor.
So at your table, you now have permission to open up your packets. Inside the packet are various player cards. There are 9 cards, so that should be enough for at your table. Pick one play. Everybody should pick one or at least one player, read about yourself, and then fold your player card in half so that the picture faces the table so other people know who you are, and the text faces you. At least one person should be the CFO. You got to turn it around, Nick. Picture faces other people, text faces you. All right. Everybody got your CFO? Anybody picking the position that they like the least? Walk in somebody else's shoes? All right. So everyone has a character, everyone has read the card. Here we go.
All right, welcome to round one. You just showed up to your 8 a.m. emergency executive committee call. As of 6:47, the initial damage assessment is complete. CIO is briefing the exec committee. Meridian's managed security service provider alerted the firm to suspicious overnight activity involving a single sign-on credential from NorthPoint System, its HR and payroll provider. We have determined that 47 employee accounts had been accessed outside normal business hours. The threat actor, Tide Wraith, had entered Meridian's environment 7 months ago through a compromised NorthPoint System software update, remaining dormant until activating over the weekend. The initial damage assessment: attackers exfiltrated roughly 31,000 client records, including personally identified information, along with employee W-2 data and internal loan files. Ransomware encrypted Meridian's primary file server and 2 backups. While core systems have been partially restored, operations remain degraded.
That's what everybody wants to walk into on Monday morning. All right. Also in your packet was a form. There were actually 3 forms that look a little bit like this. I want you to pull out the one that says round 1. So round 1, you've got these 4 questions. Pick one person who's going to write down the answers for the group, or your responses for the group. But again, round 1, what is Meridian's internal notification plan? Who gets notified? Number 3, how severe, what thresholds force you to escalate? And really, number 4, think about where do you have critical capability and where do you have gaps? So we're going to give everybody, let's see, for this we're going to give everybody about 5 to 7 minutes. Write down your answers, and then we're going to ask for a couple representatives to read out what they have for the table. So let's go until about 53 after. So let's go mingle among the crowd, just kind of listen in and help them out. And then since we have 3 mics on each table.
Perfect. Oh, okay, good. Good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, outside maybe the second.
Independent prices tax. Okay. And the other 2 say that it will undermine our
guide us on best.
Work that in, but it's showing that everybody has a different point of view. Everybody knows something else. You guys finish whatever question you're on. Each other question. Let's go about 1 more minute.
They're asking if we can go back one slide so they can see it.
I guess this does have range.
Okay, good.
Very good range. Yeah, we were wondering. All right.
Do you want to take like the back part of the room? I'll take it.
All right, all right, all right. I love hearing all the conversation. I feel terrible, but I got to break in. Man, you guys are into this. All right. What's that? We're doing all 4. So I'm going to ask you guys to read out your answer for number 1. All right. What is the Meridian internal notification plan in the first 60 minutes? Oh. You guys are really into this. Alana, I'm going to ask, can I ask you to clap? All right, we're going to go quickly because we are going to try and get through 3 rounds and we're going to get some responses and back and forth. So, what is the Meridian internal notification plan in the first 60 minutes? I'm going to ask this group to go first.
As we said, call the third-party vendor, they're legal and are legal. So call the third-party vendor that was the source of the vulnerability, get their legal and your legal involved, senior leaders, and IT.
Who has something to add on top of that?
Yeah.
Insurance provider.
The bank,
The board.
we also added the bank because there was financial implications at risk, and the more they're aware, so they can freeze and no transactions will be taken out of the accounts.
All right, I feel like it's a little family feud. So it's like bank for 200, bank for 200.
I was just going to kind of mention that too. If we're a financial services institution implementing some sort of wire freeze or ACH lockdown for a certain period of time, but that would roll into communications of, we're not necessarily going to clients at this point, but we're saying, okay, working on system issues, no wires in this period, kind of thing.
Okay, and I think you had one to add.
Notify the board.
The board. Make sure the board is involved.
I'm the CEO and I'm not doing anything until I have board.
I was going to say somebody at the table is a board.
No, we don't have enough people at the table, so we don't have board.
I'll be the chair.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything until I talk to you.
All right. Other elements for notification.
We went Die Hard style, and we turned off everybody's elevator access, and so nobody could leave the building until we figured this out. The crime was internal, guys. We know it. All right.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was having lunch with a guy talking about cyber breaches, and he was at a manufacturing plant in Texas, and he said the breach happened overnight, And by the time everybody got in, there were signs, right? You said elevator access? There were signs just printed out on every door and every window, every entry point that said, do not connect to Wi-Fi, do not connect anything at all to the network. So sometimes it's a quick notification, sometimes you're calling everybody. Make sure you're telling your people, and whether it's an offline analog makes a lot of sense if your network is compromised. Walter, anything to add, anything that the group might have missed or overlooked?
Yeah, I think a lot of great responses. The one thing I will say is legal is always one of the first calls we recommend, and this notification sequence has to happen deliberately and quickly, because what you don't want is you don't want information starting to trickle out throughout the organization and rumors start to spread and there be misinformation that's going around that's not entirely productive or factual.
All right. Question 2, what external notifications? And I guess maybe we've covered some of the externals as well. Does anybody have any additional external notifications? Anything we haven't covered?
Anybody whose information might have been in there, but they're no longer with the organization, a former employee, or if there was any emergency contact information, any external person that would have been affected by the information stolen.
So beyond the customers, also just other people who, you can imagine it as the ripples in the pond, and as it spreads out, who else is notified? Who else is involved? All right, number 3, based on what you know, how severe is this incident? What thresholds would force you to escalate further? I know we had a couple groups who got to question 3.
Oh, about the thresholds of communication or thresholds of disclosure not being met, right? And so that goes with the order of. Sorry. Now I'm all of a sudden shy, Brian. I know, it happens every once in a while. The disclosure thresholds hadn't been met in our scenario, so we had some discussion with external communications about what we would disclose. And of course, we've got a VP of communications who said he was going to continue to lie like a rug. So I think there's a mandatory HR and legal webinar in there somewhere.
All right, other comments on number 3 about severity, measuring severity, or at least trying to estimate it this early on? Walter, thoughts on and advice on this?
Yeah, so 2 notes. Going back to number 2, one thing I don't know if I heard for external notifications is cyber insurer. You guys mentioned that? Okay. You guys got that? Yeah, cyber insurer, external PR firm, external legal firm, and potentially FBI. You got all of that. Great. And then the only other thought I'll add in there on the severity is typically we like to recommend that people think about severity in terms of impact, quantifiable impact specifically. So starting to estimate how much this could cost the company in dollars, estimating based on the number of records that may have been exposed, and then also estimating based on what type of operational impact it could have to the organization.
So that implies both direct and indirect, right? Direct
Yes.
operations, people, customer, dollars not flowing. But when you get into operations, shut down, ransomware, right? Then you're trying to make larger, I guess, somewhat theoretical. I mean, I guess, how would you estimate, or do you have any guidance on how to estimate operational measures?
So it is a best guess estimate. So the thing about incidents is you're not going to have all of the information available at the very beginning. You're going to be operating on holes in information and limited information, and you're going to have to make a best estimate. So typically what we see companies do is be very conservative in those estimates and erring on the side of caution. So the financial impact is going to be the one where that's probably the hardest to estimate. You're going to think about loss of business, loss of sales. You might be thinking about, as well as on the operational side, how long are our factories going to be down, our production systems going to be down. That's going to be a true estimate. But the estimate around how many data and how many people were impacted, that should be relatively clear early on. But then there are going to be other things in terms of reputational impact and regulatory impact that, again, you're going to have to make some educated guesses on. We recommend being conservative so that you're not having to backtrack later.
Great. Question 4, where do you have critical capability or capacity gaps? Did anybody make it to question 4? Did anybody jump to question 4?
Come on. We did, yeah, we said to notify an external law firm because there were questions about a class action suit. Also, the insurance company about cyber insurance, and get a cybersecurity firm, since we have apparently have a gap in cybersecurity.
Well, we had a CIO, but Tim fired that person. Anybody else make it to question 4? Capability or capacity gaps? Walter, I'll put you on the spot again. Any advice on this?
So I think the biggest capability gap most companies have, is on the actual cyber incident response effort. Most companies are going to have a cybersecurity team, and on that team there are 1 or 2 people that do the actual incident response. That's not enough when you're actually experiencing a breach. So having a cybersecurity firm on retainer that can provide you with surge support is typically what they call it, and that's extra firepower to actually do the investigation, and then also doing the forensics. That's going to be a big piece.
Great. And one of the things, so this is a little bit of what Walter was talking about, the preparation and the kind of materials that you might have. Everybody has this in their slides, and they also have a copy of this in a 10-page PDF that's available in the app itself. I'm not going to drain the slide here just because, in the interest of time, but the point that you should be getting from the conversation, from the pages, and from this is the planning you can do ahead of time, the risk management you do ahead of time is what allows you to move faster during the incident itself. Does anybody know what this is? I heard it. It's the clue board. It's the original clue board. When you have all these conversations, when you're talking to all these different people, you're talking to the board, council, internal, external, employees in the building, employees at home, you have to think about the conversations and who is listening, where you're having the conversations, who is invited in, who needs to, what the benefit of having this thought structure ahead of time is you know who is read into different amount of data that's released and what happens. Whether you get legal clearance, whether you meet your regulatory requirements, who knows what at what point, whether your customers run away and abandon you. You have to have your conversational alignment mapped out ahead of time so that you can move quickly without violating any regulatory requirements in the heat of the moment.
All right, welcome to round 2. It's been 2 hours later from our exciting first 2 hours. Now we're going to talk about decisions and actions.
All right. So everybody should find on their table the round 2 page. And here, the question is, what decisions have to be made right away? Now, on the screen, you have a little bit more detailed. There's many decisions that have to come right away. We want you to think about, if you can get to 5, then, I don't know, you'll get Tim's new jacket. But just think about the first 3 points, decision, owner, and impact. But know that when you're thinking about this ahead of time, when you have a full document and you're sitting around with your management teams, you'll want to go deeper into some of these other categories. But for right now, let's take another 5 minutes and come up with 1, 2, 3, 5 if you're great, if you're feeling good, decisions that your team has to make. The company itself is it publicly traded? Is it what's the ownership structure?
That's to your discretion. As Walter, when he does these, he says, do not fight the scenario, just roll with it.
That's it.
So I'm gonna.
Any questions on this part?
For the purpose of the exercise, why don't you guys make a choice for your ownership? It'll be interesting to see how it moves around the room. But who owns it?
Excellent, excellent.
What's that?
I mean, so we addressed stop halting.
I was asking if you remember that we got the throwing.
Yeah.
Have we?
And then if you figure out that some of them are legitimate, what is your path?
Someone needs cash and they can't get it.
Yes, so you cause panic. Right. That's another conspiracy. Oh my goodness. Did you tell the CEO or CFO? So you say to report it, you say
feedback. The sound wasn't very loud.
I didn't even hear it.
Here, through your microphone right down here, or wherever the microphone, yeah.
Oh, oh no!
Oh no, incoming.
It's another fire drill.
Incoming. Tide Wraith has made contact through your incident response firm. Demand is $8.5 million in crypto, payable within 72 hours. 8.2 in crypto. In exchange, they claim they will provide the decryption key, delete the client records they exfiltrated, and provide you a security report explaining how they got in. They've included a sample of 50 client records as proof. Your cyber insurance coverage is in dispute. Your IR firm says decryption keys work about 60% of the time. What's your posture and who decides? Add that to your decision. They do not. Crypto, straight crypto.
We don't.
No payment plans.
Yeah, just this one.
So for the ransomware, we don't have a separate round card for this. But just what are you going to do? Just by show of hands, right? Somebody tell me, what are you going to do to respond to this new threat? Who's going to pay? Let's start with that. Who's going to pay?
I would try the insurance first, even though maybe there's a dispute, but let's have legal talk to them and see what liability they're assuming, if what are we dealing with.
So first talk to your insurance, talk to legal, find out what your liability is going to be, right? Who else? Who else says we think we're going to, who else, well, does anybody think they're going to pay? Just, we're going to get this over with, who's going to pay? I see someone wavering. Walter, would you mind sharing your thoughts?
So the issue really is, how do you know they're going to keep their promise if you pay, right? They've already screwed you over once. They'll probably not give you what they said they would give you for if you're going to pay it. But then at the same time, it's like, what options do you really have? I mean, if a lot of people are affected, your reputational risk could be worth way more than the ask for the ransom. So that's why I'm saying, like, I don't really know which way I'll go.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, and then let me also add this in there. If you pay, how are you going to procure $8.2 million in Bitcoin? Setting up an individual Coinbase account, you know, there are questions there.
Anybody in the I'm going to pay? Anybody want to share what they're thinking, pay or not pay? What? Tell us why you're in the not pay camp.
I trust these people as CEO. As the CEO, I trust these people.
And they're telling you.
And they're telling me not to.
Who else wants to jump in? Pay or not pay?
I think if we hired that outside cybersecurity people, we need to see what they find.
So kind of let the process run, knowing that there's a ticking time.
Does it change your decision if they came back to you and was like, we'll just take $1 million instead of 8.2? You get everything back.
Well, so here's another question. So everybody, here's another question. We started out talking about. Here's another question. We started out talking about different types of cyber attacks, and we talked about the double extortion ransomware attack. Does it change your decision if they then threaten to start releasing your data publicly? We're talking about employee PII, financial records, legal records, trade secrets. Does that change your decision to pay if they release that if you don't?
I think you still have to understand how they got in there and if they really have it to even release it, which is why you got to have 1 to 2 cybersecurity people by your side really freaking quick.
Good point.
We've been talking about how before we even think about paying, we'd probably look for like a ransom negotiator of some sort and look through that through our cybersecurity connections because we just don't have enough information. And where would we even get that much crypto?
Very good point. So having a ransom negotiator that you've contracted with before the incident is a best practice because what that ransom negotiator is going to do, and as bad as it sounds, these bad actors, they are corporations. They offer discounts, they have help desks, and so that ransom negotiator typically will know who's working on the help desk for the bad guys at the right time. They'll know which analyst to talk to, and they can help you negotiate down. They also can help tell you which bad actors are for real about the deadlines and which ones are typically lenient if you don't pay by the deadline. And then the other point you brought up there, which is very good, is how would you get that much Bitcoin? And this is where we typically recommend companies secure a agreement with a third-party payment provider. And there's really only one on the market, and they're Digital Mint. But essentially what they do is they will go out there and they will get the Bitcoin for you. They already have Bitcoin on hand, millions of Bitcoin on hand. And then when you need to pay it to the bad guys, you send them cash and then they send the money to the bad guys. They do this for two reasons. One, so that you don't have to pay the Bitcoin yourself. And then two, so that you don't have to be on record transacting with a bad actor that may be on an OFAC list. And that's very important. A threat actor. So they're the bad guys. They're the hackers. And so they may be somewhere in Russia, in China. They could be somewhere in Eastern Europe. Sometimes you don't know. Digital Mint, they're the third-party payment provider. Yes. You said end up paying? Yeah, I would say somewhere, in my estimation, somewhere around 60, 70% do pay. And I'll also tell you this is what a lot of the bad guys do is they put you on that clock. So if you don't pay within 72 hours, that number goes up. So I was working with one client to where their CEO said, look, I'll never pay. I don't negotiate with terrorists. 72 hours came up, and the threat actor said, okay, the payment's doubled. And the company realized they couldn't recover the backups. And here's the other point a lot of people don't talk about. Most companies have never done an exercise to test if they can actually successfully recover their backups. We're talking about 100 plus terabytes of data. You can't just recover that overnight. That's a week, multiple weeks, sometimes months long process. So sometimes actually paying the ransom is faster because you can get your data back faster. So that CEO that said, I will never pay, we don't negotiate with terrorists, he came back to the table 2 days later after the deadline and said, okay, we're ready to pay. Well, that $3 million went to $6 million. Then he was really in a pickle. And ultimately they paid, but what could have been a $3 million payment turned up to be, they negotiated down to about $5.5 million, but that was a lot of money. Almost all of them. So these threat actors, these bad guys, they have a reputation. They have, seriously, they have a reputation, and just like you have credit bureaus, there are different agencies that rate all of these different threat actors on how honest they are. And so they want you to know they are honest, and so they'll give you back your data because they want you to give them a positive score. 5 stars. I'm not joking. Just one more thing. I was telling this to Brian before we started. I was telling this to, and you can also, you can also add a tip as well.
And that would be tax-free.
You can add a tip. I was telling this, I'm speaking from experience. There's just one more thing. During the pandemic, when companies are really hurting, these threat actors, they were offering a corporate welfare program. They understood companies were hurting, so they were offering 10 to 15% discounts on their ransoms. And they had a heart. They had a heart.
In all of our preparation, to run this session, that was the most eye-opening, shocking, surprising thing. That the person on the other end isn't somebody in a basement somewhere out of reach. You are negotiating with a professional organization that is in this for the money, that has call centers and discount coupons and reputations, right? And reputations that they are trying to upkeep.
Taco Tuesday and
Was there a question over there?
I just wanted to know, do they make it known who they are? Like, do they publicly announce, like, hey, we're bad guy XYZ, so that you know who you're dealing with, or do the cyber insurance companies find out for you, or how do you know who it is and evaluate the risk?
Very good question. So she asked, how do you know who it is so that you can evaluate to pay them or not? Typically, the bad guys, they leave a calling card. So you typically do know once your cyber analysts are investigating, they can match back the strain of the ransomware back to what their organization typically does. So you typically know based on that. Yep. And then I'll come to you really quick.
I want to know how many arrests were made.
So actually, not a whole lot of arrests. A couple of years ago, one of the biggest threat actor groups out there was an organization called REvil, and they were operating in Eastern Europe, and they got busted, and some of them did go to jail. But you have to realize some of these are state-sponsored, and they're not in the U.S. So if they're state-sponsored by a country that may be an official or unofficial enemy of the U.S., they may be partially funded by their government. So the U.S. getting involved to enforce some kind of legal action, or law enforcement, it can be very tricky.
Does the penetration testing that IT is supposed to do actually help?
Very good question. So does the penetration testing that IT is always asking for money for, does that help? And the answer is yes. So we have found a correlation between companies that invest the most in cyber and do the most to prepare for these incidents typically fare better, and sometimes don't have them happen at all because they're able to detect it faster and they're able to get it out of their environment faster. Very good question. The one other thing I'll add in here is this happened, we were assuming this happened during business hours, but these bad guys are so bad that a lot of times they strike when they know that people are on vacation. So they on vacation or during holidays. So they take vacation during the summer, just like we all do. And then their, big season is Black Friday, Christmas holiday, Thanksgiving. They know that most companies' security and IT departments are slim because people are out of the office. And they know people are doing a lot of transactions around that time. So they know that you can't afford to be down most times.
Is it legal to hack the hacker? Like pay another company $3 million to hack the hacker?
It's not illegal. And this is a very good question because the question here is about data and where does that data ultimately go? And even if they don't publish it automatically to the public, a lot of times the bad guys that get in, they will leak your data and sell it on the dark web. And when they sell it on the dark web, there's all kind of nefarious actions that are going on there. There are hackers for sale, and you can pay to have hacks on your competitors, which is what some small businesses do, for as low as $50. And now the quality of the attacker goes up. You can pay thousands, but I wouldn't recommend it because
None of this is recommended by us, by the way. So,
but theoretically, the answer would be yes.
Are there any conferences that they go to that we could go to as well?
There actually are. DEF CON, it's in Las Vegas. And so at DEF CON, if you go, do not take a phone or your laptop at all. Yeah. It's in August.
All right. We've got about 15 minutes, and we're moving on to Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning, 24 hours later, the next day, you can remove your role. You are all CFOs again now. So put your CFO lenses on. Can you hear me?
Can you guys hear Lane?
It's the next day. You can drop your roles. You're all CFOs now, so put your CFO lenses on.
All right. Let's do this. Let's have, thinking as a CFO, these first three rows, I want you to answer question 1. And everybody should have this in their round 3 page. Second row, your question 2. Third row, your question 3. And last row, your question 4. Let's take about 5 minutes to focus on your question. It's up here, but you also all have it on your, in your packet. All right. Let's bring everyone back together. I'm loving the conversation and the energy in the room and everything pinging back and forth. All right. Row one, I'm going to start over here. What is the CFO's role and how does it change?
Okay. No one wants it. I think our role as the CFO is doing the risk assessment. How do we limit and mitigate risk as much as possible? What's the economic impact? And how are we asking the rest of the company the right questions to be sure that we stay ahead of this in the future and that we close all the doors that have been open?
Anything to add from these two tables?
We said that we needed to become more operational, more involved, not just, she mentioned very good points, but you also have to influence and get more involved.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is dealing with the existing bank that you have and make sure that you're maintaining that relationship, but then also understanding that it's a good practice to have a second lender behind that in the case of needing additional liquidity and needing some additional support. If in this case you had a decent line available, but if you don't have that, it's good to have a second person available.
All right, so a variety of answers from being more operational and tactical to being that center of coordinating everybody to planning ahead and making sure that you've got your lines ready. Let's go to row two for question two. This is, what would have been helpful to know before the event?
We struggled with this because, your CFO should know insurance coverage. They should know what their largest clients are. They should know a lot of that information. So we were struggling with trying to figure out what they didn't already know.
Okay. Center table.
So some of this might be repeated, but is the insurance up to date? Just how much coverage do we have? Do we have a reserve for a breach like this? So do we have a pot of money available just to cover this or not? And if we don't have any money saved, well, what other necessary cash outflows do we have coming up in the future? And if we redirect the money to paying the ransom, what do we do about those necessary cash outflows? Are the counterparties willing to be lenient and let us delay payment, or is this going to be a loss on our side? So then we have to think about, is it worth it or not to agree to the ransom? And then there's also something here about what's our line of credit, and I guess additional access to financing. What additional financing do we have access to in an emergency situation like this?
And if I could just add to that point about insurance, so we do recommend most companies have cyber insurance, but it's also recommended to have business interruption insurance as well. And those are two separate policies.
And this seemed to be many flavors around cash flow. Make sure you have access to cash to get you through, whether it's this or that works for most risk events as well. Anything to add from this table? He's got you.
We as a group talked about why didn't we have a sweep account, or why didn't we use the sweep accounts for our operations? That way, every morning we get to approve what's in the account to prevent such cyber attacks or actions like this. Since we already have the information that we have line of credit, that was the most important thing. And the next thing was we need to check our servers to make sure the back door has been closed. Because if we still have that issue, it means someone else will attack our servers again.
Kind of a question. This originated with a third-party vendor. How much do you recommend leaning on your vendors to show proof of they have their stuff in line? Because really, they're the ones that were at fault of this whole thing to begin with. And so obviously we have vulnerabilities internally, but how much time do you recommend sending or spending time externally or looking outward?
So, good question. I can tell you when I did the Target breach back in 2015, that famous Target breach actually happened through an HVAC vendor that was not secure. So what we recommend is, one, building it into every vendor contract that they have to have reasonable cybersecurity, and secondly, that there's a time span that they have to notify you if they have any breach whatsoever. That's number one. Number two, we recommend before you sign an agreement with any vendor, no matter who it is, that you have some form of an attestation done of their cybersecurity capabilities. That may be they provide you with their SOC 2, which is a security certification, or that may be a questionnaire that you all require that they fill out that says they have certain cybersecurity controls, and they provide evidence of those to you. This is especially important with the smaller vendors that you may work with. And this is especially important with any manufacturers or any software developers where it may be a mom and pop operation or a small business where they just haven't invested in cybersecurity, but they're connected to your network.
All right, row 3, we'll start over by Lane. What are the things that are in your 90-day financial picture? Inflows, outflows, et cetera.
Well, we filled up the page and probably didn't come up with even a half of what we think might happen, but we're forecasting, modeling out worst case scenarios and all of that. So potential ransom payout, the insurance proceeds in, less the deductible. That was probably very high. Thank you for your insurance input. We think loss of revenue needs to be calculated and taken into account. The legal and third-party consultant expenses that are all adding up substantially in this crisis situation. I'm not sure what higher collateral demanded means. Oh, if we need if we need to get additional money from the banks, like the line of credit we were talking about, if there's any like extra involvement in trying to meet their demands. Being able to pay for the credit monitoring expenses for all the people that were affected, and increased cybersecurity expenses going forward to keep these people on retainer forever. We need to procure a new payroll vendor because that's where the breach happened, and I think that covers all the. That's as far as we got.
Center table, anything additive to that list? Or this table at the end, anything additive?
I'd just take one shot. I agree with the cash outflows. On the inflow, many companies have a business recovery plan that would shed some light on how they'd be able to maintain cash inflows while their systems are being compromised.
So I'll chime in on that. That is a very important point. Business continuity. We highly recommend, as important as cybersecurity, having a business continuity plan that includes a downtime procedure for all of your critical business functions, including finance. So how would you make payroll? How would you continue to send out invoices, all of the other financial reporting? How do you continue all of the essential financial activities while you're in a degraded state? Very important.
All right. One comment?
We did have one kind of question that came up. Say, we paid the ransom, right? And everything goes 100% roses. How long typically does it take to get up to full operational mode if you do that?
So really good question. It depends on how big your company is and how much data they stole. I would say on the low end, about a week, and on the higher end, it could take 3 to 4 weeks if you have a lot of data that they had. Because basically what they're going to release to you is a decryption key, and then your IT team is going to have to take that decryption key and apply that across the organization to every asset and system.
All right, let's go to the fourth row and question 4. How do you frame recovery and a credible path forward to your investors, and keeping an eye on that legal exposure?
Hey, Nick, how are you, sir? Just want to see you're still awake. So here's what we're going to do. We have decided that not only are we going to need to have be fully transparent with our investors, because they're going to hear about this in the news. They're going to hear about all over the place. This happens. It's embarrassing, certainly, but we just need to make sure our investors understand what the inside, what really happened. Now, we're going to deal with legal and our VP of Communications, what have you, make sure that we're saying the right things, but also because we want to give them talking points, because when they get asked about them, we need to make sure that everybody's saying the same thing. And so don't go outside these talking points. This is where we're going to stay. In addition to that, these investors who are our investors are probably investors in other companies that could be affected by this. So the question is, do we want to also invite, once we get the postmortem and everything that happened, right, with certain information, maybe we just do almost a tell-all, be very, very vulnerable and intimate with neighboring companies in not only in our industry, but some smaller ones, maybe the Chamber of Commerce, what have you, and actually host an event to say, this is what happened to us, don't let it happen to you. And that way, what it does for our investor group, it shows that we're not only owning what happened, we understand that it happened on our watch, but we're also trying to prevent it from happening to their other investments, perhaps, but also looking at it from a community standpoint that we can turn this negative into a giant positive from a goodwill and social perspective.
Great. Thanks, Tim. We'll go just 30 seconds for the last two tables, because I just saw that we're at time. We've had such a rich conversation here. Last final words from the last two tables.
So we honed in on the transparency also, and then we said that we would also want to share our action plan with the investors, the steps that we're taking, what's going on, as well as the preventative measures we'd be taking for the future to ensure and instill confidence.
All right. We have more content both in the slides as well as the PDF. There's all in the app, the 10 pages from Oak Trust on what to do. What we want you to do is to go back and think about what you can do, what comes next for you. What did you hear today that you can apply so you can be ready, put the controls in place so that you can move fast, and so that finance can be the steering wheel and not the brake on this one.
Can I ask a favor? I don't know if you guys are up for this. Would you guys mind doing a little more of a follow-on on the web, like a half hour as a follow-on? I'd love just a follow-on. Who else would love that?
Absolutely.
I mean, this was amazing. I mean, first of all, thank you so much. This was awesome. I mean, this was incredible. I mean, I learned so much, and I realized how many gaps we have to fill, and so much we can learn. I mean, it was amazing.
So real quick, we'd love to get the pages that you have so that we could share your questions and your comments. You can send them to any of the three of us, and we'll put them on the CFO Alliance app. When you send them in, also email any questions that you'd want for that follow-on session, so we make sure that we answer whatever it is you guys are looking for, and because it's your questions that make this the best conversation and the best dialogue.
Yeah, well, it may be great dialogue because we're so engaged, but you three did a phenomenal job. Again, another round of applause for them.
Thank you.
I mean, talk about bringing the energy. That was awesome. And we will, since you said yes and we all witnessed it, we will get that on the calendar for the coming weeks and we'll build off that. Perfect way to segue. So here are the details. Beginning at 5:30, you will walk down the main exit. And because there are 2 trolleys and a bus that are going to run constantly, they can't pull into the car area, but they're going to be parked right out front. So you walk down, go out the doors, and instead of the roundabout, it's going to be right there on the street. Can't miss them. This sign that says meet here will be there, and you'll see probably all of us waving, okay? But they'll run constantly, beginning at 5:30, okay? If you have any questions at all, just look for Sam. She'll be the one. She's not leaving until all of you get there, I promise, all right? We will see you beginning at 5:30. Bring your energy. And once again, thank you so much. And we'll also pick up our sessions tomorrow morning, too. What was that? Oh, and if you haven't registered, don't worry about it, but register, please. Let us know. See Sam. And if you haven't picked up a bag, pick up a bag here, because once again, there's a cigar holder in there. Even if you don't smoke cigars, bring one home to someone, because you're going to be able to carry that on the plane. All right? Thank you, everyone. And once